They called it the Second Rome, a great city astride Europe and Asia. And its vast empire, which would preserve Greco-Roman culture and transmit it to the West, when Rome itself lay in barbarian hands. The Byzantine Empire, this time on the Western tradition. We can attribute the creation of the Byzantine Empire, which was the Second Rome, to Constantine the Great, who transferred the empire's capital to the city that would bear his name, who made the empire a Christian empire, and the emperor into the anointed of the Lord. The Byzantine Empire copied and preserved much of the classical art and literature and Roman law which we have inherited. And the empire's importance to Eastern Europe is even greater because it was Byzantine missionaries and Byzantine prestige that civilized and Christianized the Eastern Slavs from the Baltic to the Balkans and beyond. The Byzantines called their lands Romania, and they called themselves Romans, Romaioi. And their empire remained for many centuries the only civilized power in all of Europe. Constantinople was inaugurated as an imperial capital of the Roman Empire in 330, and it survived until 1453, when the Turkish conquest put an end to one imperial tradition and began another, renaming the city Istanbul. During this more than 1,000 years, the Byzantines conquered and lost several empires. The average ship would take a week or two to cross the Mediterranean from north to south, 15 days from Constantinople to Alexandria. But it could take as much as 2 or 3 months from east to west, for example, from Crete to Carthage or Cadiz. So there were considerable obstacles to the realization of the Byzantines' imperial ambition. Yet, whatever happened to its outlying empire, Constantinople remained what Paris was, what New York is today. The foremost city of luxury, fashion, and culture, also the city of sin, corruption, and material temptation. The city was built on a high peninsula on the Bosphorus, where Europe comes very close to the Asian shore. Astride both Europe and Asia, Constantinople was a crossroads. It commanded the route from the Caucasus and the steppes to the Mediterranean, and also the route from the Danube Valley to the Euphrates Valley. The Balkans were its backyard. Asia Minor lay just across the water, and beyond that Syria and Mesopotamia. So Constantinople was perfectly situated to serve as the capital of a realm that bridged East and West, that connected Greco-Roman culture with Christianity and with Oriental civilization. And its history is indeed the bridge that links us with Egypt, which it came to rule, and with Persia, which it fought and finally defeated. For centuries, Constantinople was the repository of Greek and Roman culture and of the tradition that had been built up in preceding ages in Egypt and Babylon and Athens and Rome and Jerusalem. Our civilization wouldn't be the way it is today if the city of Constantine hadn't endured to transmit these traditions, to transmit the Latin of Rome and the Greek of Athens, the skills, the arts, the thought, the memories, to the barbarians of the West and to their gradually more civilized successors. So the survival of the city was crucial because it helped to make our past. Perhaps the most important factor in its survival was the conviction that the empire was willed by God and protected by God and his anointed representatives. If your state is founded on the will of heaven, why innovate? The change of emperor did not mean a change of policy except in minor details, because to change it would have been something like changing your faith. And so, with heaven's approval secure, the Byzantine sovereign and the Byzantine state were both defenders of the faith.
Constantinople, the greatest city of its time and the gateway to Europe. For centuries, the Muslims had tried and failed to conquer the Christians in their impregnable walled city. If Constantinople were ever to fall, the whole of Europe would be vulnerable. In 1453, the Muslims were trying again, and this time with a new weapon. A weapon so powerful that even Constantinople's massive battlements might not withstand the pounding. If the combination of a determined Muslim leader and this fantastic new weapon could break the stalemate, the siege of Constantinople would truly be one of history's turning points. For 800 years, Constantinople was the world's richest city, center of trade, bridging Asia and Europe. When Rome fell to the barbarians in the 4th century, Constantinople took its place as the capital of the great Roman Empire. But 11 centuries later, this once great empire had shrunk to little more than an impoverished city-state. Its new leader, Constantine XI, ruled over a capital that was bankrupt, its lush gardens overgrown, its palaces deserted, and its people dispersed. Yet Constantinople remained the center of the Orthodox Christian Church, while Rome was the center of the Catholic Church. Each were jealous of the other's power and influence. This division was so great that to Rome, the Orthodox Church was an even greater enemy than Islam. What was to follow was a brutal Christian feud. But the city would always remember how the Roman Catholic Crusaders bloodily sacked Constantinople in 1204, when it possessed 2/3 of Europe's wealth. The city never recovered its former glory. By the time Constantine XI inherited the imperial throne in 1449, Constantinople was surrounded by an aggressive enemy. Constantinople had become a Christian enclave in the middle of the Ottoman Empire, which now extended from the Danube to the Euphrates, including Bosnia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia. 800 years after Eyüp Ensari's death, another Ottoman Sultan, Mehmet II, declared,
"There is only one thing I want. Give me Constantinople."
But his grand vision would not be complete without a majestic capital city. He needed Constantinople. He made sure his troops were equipped with the latest weapons. In the winter of 1451, he cut off Constantinople's supplies. Constantine was desperate. He even approached the hated Catholic Church for military assistance. He sent gifts to the Sultan and promised to increase the gold shipments. Mehmet wasn't interested, but he did offer Constantine a deal. Constantine refused. How could he surrender his city and everything that was its heritage? Classical Greece, Rome, and Christianity. On April the 6th, the Sultan pitched his red and gold tent outside the city walls. The defenders of the city awoke to a chilling sight as they looked out over the Ottoman camp. They were outnumbered by 10 to 1. Mehmet attacked. Against the odds, Mehmet's troops were turned back. The first victory went to Constantine. Stunned by this defeat, the Sultan was forced to change his tactics. He brought in artillery to destroy the city's massive walls. More than 60 large cannons were cast in temporary foundries outside Constantinople. An eyewitness wrote,
The assault continued day and night, with no relief from the clashes and explosions. For the Sultan hoped to take the city easily, since we were few against many. By pounding us to death, he allowed us no rest from the attack.
With continuous salvos, the Ottoman cannon breached the wall in several places. But the Byzantines defiantly fought off the assaults and repaired the walls. Mehmet then built a huge siege tower, only to see it burnt to the ground by a small raiding party from inside the walls. 12 weeks into the siege, neither the artillery barrage nor the attacks by the Muslim army had been successful. The Sultan's army was on the point of deserting, and he was forced to rethink his strategy. Most of Constantinople was protected by the sea. On the northern side of the city, the Christians had stretched a great chain across the mouth of the Golden Horn, thus blocking access to the city's harbor. Mehmet, in a moment of genius, bypassed the chain by hauling part of his fleet across a narrow stretch of land. Overnight, they brought 30 ships into Constantinople's protected harbor. As dawn broke, the Christians woke to discover that the Ottoman war fleet had surrounded the city. The Christians were devastated, and morale collapsed. At this moment, Mehmet used another brilliant tactic. He aimed all his cannons at the same section of the wall. Within a month, the walls began to crumble. As night gave way to day, word came that the walls had finally been breached. Soon, the first Ottoman soldiers forced their way into the cathedral, bringing to an end 1,000 years of Roman history. The last outpost of the Roman Empire, Byzantine, had fallen. The victorious soldiers spent 3 days of looting, raping, and killing. Men were butchered, women and children became slaves. Mehmet made his entrance into the city. He went straight to the holiest of the Christian shrines, the Church of the Holy Wisdom, St. Sophia. While a Muslim cleric sang, "There is no God but God," the Sultan proclaimed St. Sophia a mosque. The day after the conquest, Mehmet issued a decree stating that this church should remain a Christian sanctuary forever. Christian Constantinople was renamed Istanbul, the heart of the Ottoman Empire, which proved to be one of the world's most powerful and long-lasting. It survived for over 500 years, until the end of the First World War. The conquest of Constantinople by the Ottomans was a turning point that sent shockwaves throughout the world. The very survival of Christianity in Europe was threatened. The Silk Road was closed. The great trade route to the east was no longer in Christian hands. Europe turned westwards in search of a new route. The age of discovery had begun. The siege of Constantinople started a new era of warfare throughout the world. Mehmet had captured Constantinople with the roar of cannon fire. Since 1453, artillery has been the backbone of every successful army in history.